This is what I'm going through to test these things properly. That means crashing them, using them in all kind of light conditions, and kind of real life applications. And since the Action 5 came out, I've noticed there's a plethora of YouTubers trying to sell things instead of actually reviewing these and testing the cameras. And it also seems like there's only two camps that are worth watching. Either you're pro DJI or you're pro GoPro and you have to hate on one or the other. It feels like unless your opinion is polarized, no one's gonna watch you. So if you're looking for a polarized opinion, you need to look somewhere else. I'll show you loads of footage from everyday use, from the water to skateboarding to even trying to vlog with this thing to object tracking, because I was kind of looking forward to this feature, and I'll show you all the shortfalls as well. Just as my background, I do a lot of action sports, I travel a lot, I camp out a lot, and I'm always on the lookout for tools that help me to document these things. Because of my ADHD, I often forget things, and I forget moments, and I like making movies, even if they're not ending up on YouTube, they end up in my library. I like documenting life that way, and every single camera that makes it easier, more convenient, or has a significant impact on quality of what I'm making is always a massive plus. I also do a lot of filming for all my brands, for all my shops, and for our travel company, so I really need these to be 100% robust. And as you can tell, this is clearly not a sponsored video. I buy these things myself. We always have use for extra action cameras, so I don't really feel like I'm wasting money on getting more and more, because we're always running short, we're destroying these things daily. Okay, let's quickly jump into this. Enough of disclaimers. What I can tell you straight off from the get-go, this is a really good quality action cam. Is it much better than the 4? Well, it's not really much better. And is it much better than the GoPro? It depends, is the answer. I'll show you the comparison footage between the 5, the 4, and the GoPro 13, 12, 11, 10, because they're pretty much the same, in different light conditions. And as you probably know, GoPro always had this juicy footage coming out when you've got the perfect light conditions. When the things get dark, it typically starts sucking. That hasn't changed. If you watched my previous video on the 4, you can tell those differences, and there's no hiding from it. And it really depends whether you're using cameras in Hawaii or in rainy, dark Scotland like I do. We'll start off with really good light conditions. And just a quick disclaimer, it was bloody freezing. We'll test the quality of the footage, but also the mics that are built into the cameras, because you all know how DJI Mic 2 sounds when it's connected through the Bluetooth, so we're gonna skip that part, because it's irrelevant here. Right, so both cameras are 4K, 100 frames per second, no noise reduction, no wind reduction, and it's really windy, and it's really cold, and this is as high as I can lift my arm. There's a high chance I will end up with a massive cold after this shit, but yeah, so this is how it looks like when the sun is behind me. Yeah, tell me what you think. There's no noise reduction, but there's also no DJI mics. You know how DJI mic sounds like. So this comes directly from both of the cameras. No wind reduction, no nothing. The 4th Road Bridge, man. This is the standard color profile, so no D-Log, just as it comes out of the camera. Let's see how that's gonna fare. Right, okay, so this is with noise reduction on high, well, as in high, on the Action 5, and standard on Action 4, because there's no high or Action 4. So pointing it into the wind, it's about maybe 18-20 knots. There's white caps and everything. Straight in the sun. Zoom it back to down sun, downwind, down sun. That's a word. So let's try riding the other way and see how it affects, if it affects anything, that new noise reduction. I'm normally a little bit wary of using any inbuilt noise wind reduction things, because typically they just kind of they sound shit. I'm just curious how this is going to work. I honestly never even use the standard noise reduction on the on the Action 4. And actually, yeah, we'll see. So this is going downwind. Might be not a fair comparison. Yeah, this is definitely not a fair comparison. Let's turn around. Right, so this is going into the wind. I'm at about 20 kilometers an hour. There's loads of like freaking action throwing things to the ground, so there's a lot of cuttings to the ground. I'm not gonna go any faster. And I can't lift that arm any higher because it doesn't work. But yeah, this is what you're getting with the noise reduction on high on the 5 and standard on the 4. A bit of shooting into the sun just to compare. As you can see, the quality is really good. I didn't take my GoPro with me, stupidly, but we all know how vibrant the colors are. I don't really have an issue with DJI color scheme. You can always tweak them in a post, and all videos I record, I try to record them in log purely because you've got so many more options to manipulate the footage. You get way more dynamic range, you get way more details and shadows. It's so much easier to work with. So in both cameras, you apply LUTs to them anyway, or you color grade it yourself if you're not as lazy as I am. So to me, that looks good. And as you've heard from that mic, when the full-on wind cancellation is on, it can't handle so many things in the same time. And I think that was down to the fact that it was firstly very windy. The skateboard was making noise not only from the wheels but also from the motors themselves. We had cars going by and there was me talking as well. So you can only expect these things to work to some extent. Now this is exactly why I said I never use these options, because A, it sounds fake, and especially with that cracking moment. There's a lot of cuttings to the ground, I'm not gonna go any faster. Exactly why that option is always switched off, but it's there if you need it. If it's less crowded environment, if there's less ambient noise, I think it's going to work better. But these are all the things you can work on in post. Every single editing software has an option to dial down on the noise or separate your voice, so I would suggest just not using that because it's a nice gimmick, it just doesn't work. Now let's jump into my crashing session. I just wanna turn around, Right, let's send it. I just wanna turn around, I just wanna turn around, I just wanna have fun, turn around, I just wanna have fun, turn around, I just wanna turn around, dance, I just wanna, yeah, boy. I think I've managed to do the impossible and freeze the Action 5, because I tried to save the session and here we are. The little circle. This is an iPhone. Sorry, I don't have a better camera on me, but that kind of blows. So I was just editing this and that footage didn't save, so that kind of sucks. I did replicate the error later. I don't know if it's down to the memory card. However, it is a V30, so it should be more than enough. It works on every other camera. But I did save the other footage, so it said there was too much of a water buildup. But on the second occasion, I was sitting in front of my desk playing Helldivers and just messing around with the camera. So I'm kind of hoping that this will get sorted in a firmware update. At least the other one got saved, but if I've got a camera in my mouth and I just press the shutter button to stop and start recording, and if I'm kite surfing, I really don't have time to look at the screen. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you actually came across this issue, or is it just me and my luck. Super night mode. Like, it's pretty, like, it's pixelated because obviously this is a tiny little sensor. Now, I couldn't save that previous session. Well, it saved itself, but I couldn't switch off the camera because Action 5 just informed me that there was too much of a water pressure buildup thing. So I had to use the quick switch button to stop and start recording, which didn't work, but when I depressed it, it switched it off and then switched it on again, and it seems to be working fine. And the session got saved, so yep, pro tip, if it looks like it's stuck, just keep pressing your quick switch button, switch off the camera, switch it on again. This footage came out slightly better than I expected, and it looks great when you're playing it. If you pause for a second, you can tell there's some pixelation going on. To be fair, it was very, very dark, especially towards the end of the session when you had this beautiful colors in the sky. Typically, if it's a GoPro or older DJIs, it will be just unusable. It will be very pixelated, very dark, and even when you bump up the shadows, it would look pretty unusable. So you can see here, for example, as soon as you freeze the frame, it doesn't look spectacular. But for a tiny little sensor, this is still a very tiny sensor, this is more than acceptable. And just keep in mind, this is standard log with added Rec 709 profile. There was no extra color grading, I didn't bump up near the shadows, so I never experimented with the highlights. I just wanted to show you how it looks out of the camera, so you can do way more with that. Add a little bit of noise reduction to the footage and it's gonna look even better. And I know that Insta-Ace Pro is producing some incredible night footage, and I've seen this on my mate's cameras and I really like the effects. However, the fact that there is no replaceable lens on the Ace is a deal breaker for me. Having ability just to unscrew this little guy and put a new lens cover on is pretty much quintessential when you do any kind of a sports. Now, one of the comments I had in the previous video was from a chap saying like he never broke any of his cameras, therefore it's not a thing. I mean, oh god, just because something doesn't happen to you because you use this to chase your dog around, doesn't mean it doesn't happen to other people. These cameras get trashed by us all the time, and by us I mean me, myself, and my team. We're world champions on destroying gear. And it's not on purpose, it just happens. Because at the end of the day, the activity is what matters the most. Footage is just a byproduct. And I really don't want to worry about my camera when I'm crashing, because this is probably the least of my worries, especially when you hit the ground biking. So on that note, this did very well, and that night footage was filmed in pretty much complete darkness, so it looked alright. I'm not the biggest fan of the night mode, and I'll show you why in a second, but it did okay. That freezing thing is a little bit annoying, so I'll keep you posted if that actually happens again. We'll see if there's another firmware coming up. I really hope this is some kind of a glitch or something to do with my card. I'll see if I can replicate this by recording to internal memory, which, by the way, this has internal memory, so if you forget your card, you can still record some action. But right now, let's jump into a very dark scenario. As in, middle of the night, clouded sky, really poor lighting scenario. This is the sound and image coming directly from the cameras. It's not mega dark, but it's dark enough. And I can tell there's a huge difference on the 5. You can tell straight away that the 5 is lighter. The GoPro has slightly wider angle of view because you can't have the dark mode on ultra wide on the Action cameras. I'm not sure if you can actually see me on any of the cameras right now. Whoops, branches. Yeah, so the 5 is definitely brighter. I'm just not sure how it's gonna look in post, so we'll have a look. And this is again not ultra wide because you can't get ultra wide with the night modes on Action 5 and Action 4. But yeah, that's how it looks like in the middle of the night. With some lampposts, but yeah, not a lot of ambient light. So when I came home, I realized that it looks a little bit jittery, and you can see this in the footage, especially here, where the whole image collapses. And I think that's due to the fact that this little sensor is trying to bump up the quality and the light so much, it's just losing details everywhere, and you're riding on a shaky skateboard, that's not helping either. So I went out again, this time just using log profile and basic color correction. If I bumped up any shadows, you'll see that in the description below. This is a little bit windier day, and this is the D-Log 4K 50 frames per second with the Rocksteady on, like standard Rocksteady. Just seeing if this actually makes the footage better or makes it worse. It's definitely darker than the super night mode. And this is the 4K 100 frames per second with standard Rocksteady. This is like super dark. Super dark, super dark. There's a lamppost. I kind of went into the dark when I started filming this, so let's get a little bit of the light. Yep. Right, going the other way around, this is 25 frames per second. Ultra wide. Oops, branches. Ha! Dodge that one. Whew. So this looked a little bit better. And when it comes to night mode, I think it's a great feature if you're not moving. So if you're filming someone else, or you're filming a scene, or you're filming the city, or you're even filming someone passing by, I think that's more than usable footage for a tiny little camera like this. Let's see if that object tracking actually works. Ideally without getting run over. Whew. Okay, I know I was supposed to read the manual or watch the tutorials, but I thought that subject tracking means that you can place the camera on the ground right past it and it's gonna track you. Well, turns out it doesn't. If you do that, you're just riding like a knob from one side of the frame to the other with no tracking. You apparently have to be in the frame when you start recording, so it actually engages the tracking function, which basically means I need to go out again and film it again, and it's dark outside and it's pissing down, so it has to wait a day. I think I know where I've gone wrong, so you can see this is like highlighting me just now. So in theory, that should stay locked in on me. Let's try it again. That t-shirt is tiny bit too small, looked bigger on the website, but fuck it. So let's see if I'm gonna go out of frame. By the way, these things are absolutely amazing if you don't have any waves. It's basically a longboard with massive wheels that simulates longboard surfing on the tarmac. We had no waves this summer, so this has been an absolute godsend. And by the way, this is the most ridiculous size, just because you get used to big things pretty quickly. One really cool feature of the 5 is when you press record, it records straight away, almost. It's like a 1 second delay. 2 on 3, by the way, not 3 and go. 1, 2, 3. As you can see here, there's quite a bit of a gap between the GoPro and the DJI Action 4 and then DJI Action 5. I'm not going to go into jargon about the sensors, because some say it's the same sensor, but it's improved. So if it's improved, it's not the same sensor. It's all gibberish. Basically, what you're getting is what you've seen on the comparison. The footage looks brighter in both scenarios with the D-Log and with the night mode, for sure. One big feature for me is the battery life, which is significantly better on the Action 5. I know it has something to do with the bitrate, and it being lower, in theory, produces worse footage. I can't really see that in the things I'm doing, and I'm not sure if they will bump up that bitrate and in the future firmware updates, if that's gonna screw up the battery life. But this camera lasts forever in comparison to everything else I used. And I know in my previous video someone again mentioned that you should have loads of batteries with you if you're actually filming action. So yeah, I don't want to have loads of batteries. I want to have a quick charge, which this thing has. This is not some massive step up from the Action 4. It's a good upgrade, it's an incremental upgrade, just like I would say, well, the 13 is from, say, GoPro 11 or 12, if you really push it with the lens modes that get detected by GoPro itself, so you don't have to change any settings. But essentially, if you've got Action 4 and you're okay with the battery life, I would say you can wait till the 6th edition, but if you don't have a camera right now, I would say that this is probably the best thing you can get. Even looking from the budget perspective, this is $369, whereas GoPro is pushing envelope of a 400, and even the Action 4, I think they're selling them at $269, which is an absolute bargain. Not to mention things like syncing with Mic 2 and all these little shenanigans that you can use for vlogging if you want to use this camera for vlogs, not just POV. And as always, if you have any questions about the camera, how I use it, the bags, or whatever it is, just drop them below. I'll do my best to reply to all of them. Now, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.